Hello, welcome to Accounting 2301. My name is Scott and I will be your instructor for the course. A little bit about me. I am a third year accounting PhD student here. This is my second career. I was in corporate life for 20 plus years. First part of my life was in operations and supply chain, and sort of the second half of my career was in the finance and accounting departments. The This tracks well with the course. This is managerial accounting, and that is my background. I am not an audit or tax type accounting. I'm a corporate managerial accounting type of accounting. So hopefully, if you have any questions, by all means, make sure you ask, and I welcome all interest in this. So the course I have taught many times. I've taught it here at Texas Tech, but I also taught it at another university for 4 years. I've taught all levels of accounting, and I was actually in charge of the Intro to Managerial Accounting courses before. So I'm very familiar with the subject matter. So hopefully I will be able to make this, if not fun, at least efficient and manageable for you. A little bit about the course and how it's going to be delivered. This is an asynchronous course, meaning that the course does not have mandatory class times, and there is no mandatory attendance. The reason for this is because of the current pandemic and how things are changing. The decision was made to offer a more flexible course for students who stayed at home or have work responsibilities or have conflict with other classes. And the idea is for there to be the same amount of learning objectives and course work, but just to be a little more flexible and for students to be able to do it at their own time. So first, well, let's say I have this new tablet that I just got, and pardon me if my writing isn't so good with it quite yet, but the course delivery, there's going to be three primary things. Well, there's going to be homework, and that's going to be on Pearson. There's going to be quizzes, that's going to be on Blackboard, and there's going to be exams, and that's also going to be on Blackboard, but we're going to be using Proctorio. Now let's see if I can do this. Hey, there we go. Now, I realize some of you students have already encountered this. I'm not so familiar with it. I taught last fall, which was before all of this happened. So I'm still getting up to speed, but there will be more information about that as we get close. The first set of... I don't know why it does that, but it wants to go away from the... I think I cannot have my pen down at the same time I'm moving the mouse. There we go. The first set of homework and quizzes, rather than being done on a bi-week basis, they are due before the first exam. And the first exam is on 9/21. And we'll have more information as we get closer to that as we go forward. But just realize that the homework and the quizzes, as they're getting posted, are all kind of due at that point in time. Now, I realize that not everything is up on the websites and whatnot, and that's because the decision to offer this asynchronous class was kind of sort of late in the process. And rather than just put up, 2-hour lectures and all that sort of thing, I think this course is better served to having sort of smaller, bite-sized video lectures and whatnot. And so I'm actually in the process of kind of creating all this new content and getting it up for you. I still feel we're on course. Normally the first week is introductions, the second week is where we first start getting into the material, so essentially we're on track. The course delivery, so asynchronous, the homework, so I guess maybe I'll just write that down, if I can spell it correctly. Asynchronous, meaning you're going to have to me this means you're going to have to do a little bit of time management. Obviously you shouldn't, or I don't advise you waiting until the last minute, but The homework and quizzes are not specifically due at any time except for the first exam, and same with the second batch, the second exam, etc., etc. So we will be doing video lectures, small video lectures, and I'll talk about that format here in just a second. Initially, I'm going to try and put them on YouTube. If I've got to do them in some other format, we will do that. Secondly, we will be doing the quizzes and exams on Blackboard and homework through Pearson MyLab. So Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 is now available of the homework. Chapters 1, 2, and 3, and 4 of the quizzes are available. So I'm going to start rolling out the videos here, probably one a day for the next week, and everything should be kind of timed correctly. And believe you me, I understand this is a new format for you and it's a new format for me. So there is some flexibility. Let's just try and see if we're doing it. And I welcome feedback as time goes on. If you find I could do something different with the video lectures or something, please let me know. I'm open to kind of your views on these things. So that's the course delivery format. As you notice, I'll have sort of a schedule here on the left, and I'll be doing some writing or problem working on the right. The video lecture format, as I mentioned a little bit, rather than doing kind of big, broad 2-hour lectures where I feel like students can get, I have seen it, where students can kind of get confused. Oh, that stuff we covered in the first part, what does that have to do with the second part? Well, I feel like we have an opportunity here to make things a little bit, I guess, more succinct, more concise. In other words, the quizzes and the homeworks will be done, normally the questions are done by learning objective. So wouldn't it be nice if I have, say, a video on, here's the learning objective 1 and all the sort of the basic information in it. And by the way, here are a couple of problems that specifically address learning objective 1 and A. That's one video. Then we go on to learning objective 2, talk a little bit about that, do a few problems about that, and then from there you can go directly to the homework and to the quizzes and do them kind of piecemeal, kind of do them while it's still fresh in your mind rather than trying to read everything and then do all the homework. So watch a video, try and learn the content, try and watch the problem solving, then go ahead and do the homework and the parts of the quiz. And the homework and the quizzes are kind of set up to be able to where you can start and stop and kind of do them at your own pace. You don't have to do them all at once. The exam is you have to do it all at once, but the quizzes and the homework are kind of, you can jump in and jump out of them. So that should be useful. And actually, I have a little bit of background ambient music. I forgot to turn it on. Okay. So the video, that's the video lecture format. And like I say, I'll post the link to Blackboard here very shortly. The course content, and in fact, I'm going to take a second here and see if we can do this. Move the notes off the bottom of the screen. There we go. Oh, I went a little far. I didn't realize that. There we go. As far as how the course works, so we're going to talk a little bit about the differences in a minute, about differences between financial and managerial. But up to this point, your introduction to accounting has been financial. Well, this is managerial accounting, right? And how is that different? We'll talk about some specific differences here in just a minute with the learning objective, but just realize as far as the course itself, the course is set up to be mostly 3 different sections. The first section is going to be, we're going to look at cost of goods sold. Now I realize you looked at cost of goods sold in your financial accounting, and that was things like, if you remember, it was LIFO and FIFO. And that brings up an interesting concept. Well, why did you study those? Well, it's because accounting looks at things in businesses in 3 different main businesses. We talk about service-related industries. We talk about merchandising industries. which is retail and wholesale. And the last one, which we focus on in this book, is manufacturing. So in financial accounting, you looked at cost of goods sold, LIFO, FIFO, from a merchandising point of view. In this book, we're going to look at it from a manufacturing point of view. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to learn things like job costing and activity-based costing. And for my accounting students, there is one more that you will learn eventually, but we do not learn in this class. And I should put it in brackets maybe, and that's process costing. So the first section is all about cost of goods sold. So some of it may be familiar. You don't have to relearn LIFO or FIFO. The second bit is going to be what we call short-term decision making. And that means using financial information to actually make a decision within the company. And that could be, okay, someone walks in off the street and says, hey, do you have some extra capacity at your factory? Can you make this widget for me? And you have to make a kind of a decision. Short term means something less than a year, less than 1 year. It could be, okay, we've got these different product lines. Some of them are doing better than others. How do we decide, should we keep all of them? Should we drop one of them? Well, these are all short-term decision making. And we use a couple of tools. The first one is going to be the contribution margin model. And we're going to put that into the cost, volume, profit. Ooh, I run up against the buttons there. Lastly, we are going to, let me get these off the edge of the screen. The last section is going to be long-term decision. And of course, that means greater than 1 year. And that has its own special things in accounting that we take into account. But for this course, typically we are looking at, okay, let's make a budget. Now, real results never match up with the budget. So if what happens when it doesn't match the budget? Well, we look at what we call variances. So the short term, so the first section is COGS, second section is short, and the third section is long. And that's your 3 exams. You'll have exams on those 3 sections. So you notice that managerial accounting is not quite as cumulative as financial accounting. Financial accounting, what you learn in the first part, absolutely applied throughout the rest of the course, and you need to learn it. Here, they kind of are discrete decision-making and tools, they are separated. We do have a comprehensive final exam, which means you will still have to know all of these things. Just be aware that they don't actually play into each other as much. There is a little module right between the end of the exam 3 and the final exam, and this is going to be time value of money. And we'll talk more about that when we get there. I know, my handwriting is atrocious. I'm actually embarrassed. Normally I have good handwriting, but I'm getting used to being on this tablet. Okay. With that in order, let's go ahead and get into the actual learning objectives from the first chapter. So chapter 1, and you'll know from this course and from many other courses, there are going to be knowledge-based questions and there's going to be problem-solving-based questions. So the knowledge-based questions, which chapter 1 is mostly knowledge type content, I'm not going to go over it in detail. I'm going to highlight what I think are the parts you should focus on, but still you will need to read the textbook and get most of your kind of, understanding about it from there. If you have questions, remember we've got online classes, online office hours, discussion time, so feel free to email me or come visit during online office hours. So the 3 objectives, I'm going to just kind of highlight them but not discuss them in depth because they're more knowledge-based. And in the future, we'll be doing more on this side of the screen. We'll be doing some problem solving. So the first one is the responsibilities of the manager. So the manager in the company has the responsibility for planning, directing, and each of these have, I guess, specific examples in the book in controlling. Now, how this fits in with the managerial accountant is the accountant provides information to the manager to help them do these things. A simple example would be the manager needs to plan. Well, the managerial accountant helps the manager come up with the budget. That is a planning function. So there are different things that the managerial accountant does that will allow the company managers to do these three actions. So kind of read up in the chapter and you'll see kind of how these play out. The second one is financial versus managerial. Now, there's a lot of good information in the text about, and I've already kind of mentioned a few things, but let me talk about the primary difference. If you remember in your financial class, you spend a lot of time learning debits and credits and journal entries, and I'll just let you know we don't do that here in managerial. We may reference them a little bit, but we're not going to go in depth on them, and we probably won't do much of them at all. Accounting students, if you have a question about them, let me know. You will cover them in later managerial accounting courses. However, you do all of these journal entries so that you can come up with the financial statements, and the financial statements are used by whom? They're used by external people, whether it's the IRS, investors, creditors, but financial creates information used by external parties. And therefore, that's why we have GAAP, and it's so rules-based, because it's no good if every company produces its own version of an income statement. Everyone needs to be following the same thing for comparability's sake. So we have this idea that financial information is comparable, and therefore it's all based on the rules. Managerial is for internal use, and therefore it can be a little bit more unique. In other words, you can adapt information because different types of businesses run their businesses differently. So the main thing here is that we are focused more on the idea that rather than being absolute must do it the right way GAAP rules, we have a basket of tools to allow us to look at the company that may not take everything into account, but at least it tries to get some answers for the managers. So managerial accounting, internal, and it can be a little bit more adaptable. So those are the main kind of differences I want to highlight about financial versus managerial. The last one, the accounting roles and the skills. Well, once again, the textbook has a good list of them, and make sure you do look at them because there will be knowledge-based questions on the quizzes. The main thing I want to point out is the idea that at the top of a company is a CEO. Reporting to him or her is typically a CFO, and reporting to the CFO are two different people. And this is sort of a standard format. It doesn't always work out this way, but these functions are at least captured in some way or another. So reporting to the CFO is the treasurer and the controller. Typically, this is the head finance person, and this is the head accounting person. The treasurer is in charge of raising funds for the company and managing those sort of things. The controller is in charge of the general ledger and keeping the records and producing the financial statements. So typically the head accountant in the company is the controller. And the reason why I bring this up is, well, just general knowledge for the general business students, the other business students, but for the accounting students, I've heard time and time again, accounting students not really pay attention to their financial studies because they think that's not for me. I do not have to worry about them. The truth is, most accountants, even if you go into a public accounting, will end up in corporate world. And if you want to climb the ladder to a CFO, well, just look at this chart. The accountant who wants to become a CFO will have to know, will at least have to understand how to deal with all the treasurer duties, all the financial duties. So understanding that is an important thing for future corporate accountants. Know your accounting, but also be very good at your financial understanding, because that's going to lead to opportunities for CFO. Okay, well, that's our first lecture. I'm going to get this one up, and I'm going to try and follow this format at least for the next couple and see how it goes. Any questions, please let me know. Thank you, and I will talk to you again soon.